Next one. This is page 426, number 16. I've changed the word bond to account for the sake of our international students. The question says $5,000 was invested in two savings accounts for 1 year. One account earned interest at an annual rate of 2.5%. That's annually, obviously, annual meaning per year. And the other at a rate of 3.75%. The total interest earned was $162.50. How much money was invested in each account? Now, if you don't have a clue how investing works or interest or anything, it might benefit you to know what's going on before you can really understand a question. So basically, if you put money into a certain type of account, or in this case what they're calling a bond, the value of what you have invested in can increase, and as it does, it's essentially the value of your investment increases, meaning that the $10 you put in originally may be worth $11 in a year, not because your money is just growing, but because what you have put your money in towards funding has become more valuable. So therefore, it's like anything. I buy a football, and then there's a global football crisis and shortage, and now footballs are worth much more. It's just kind of like that. So that's what's happening here. So let's talk about what our equations are going to be. $5,000 is the total amount invested. One account earned an annual interest rate of this much, 2.5%, the other 3.75%. The total interest earned was this much. So this much money right here is the total interest. How much money was invested in each account? So why don't you guys go ahead and pause the video and try to solve this on your own. Okay, let's do this. So obviously the first thing we're doing is let X represent and let Y represent. We want to define our variables, the first step of solving any linear system. Keep in mind, you guys, that you still need to know how to graph and use substitution. It's not just this stuff. On the test. How much money was invested in each account? So the question is, how much money was invested in, the first account? How much money was invested in the second account? So I'm going to say let X represent the money, obviously in dollars, invested in, I'm just going to call it the 2.5 account, because I don't want to write out invested in the account that earns interest at an annual rate of 2.5%. So I'm just going to call it the 2.5 account. And then this one is the money in dollars invested in the 3.75 account. Okay, so now that I know that the total amount of money in this account plus the total amount of money in this account invested in these accounts must equal how much? This is the total amount invested at the beginning of the investment. X represents the total amount put in this account. Y represents the total amount put in this account. We know that X plus Y must equal 5,000, because $5,000 was the total money we invested. So obviously, if you split that into two accounts, the money in each account must add up to 5,000. So there's our first and our easy equation. Next is the more difficult one. We know that remember, this is the interest earned. So we know that 2.5%, now be very careful here, 2.5%, we cannot put percentages into a mathematical equation and get accurate results. You always need to turn a percent into a decimal. But Mr. Ingram, it already is a decimal. Yes, it is. But that is not actually the decimal form of this percent. To turn this percent into a decimal, we need to move this 2 places to the left. So as a decimal, the number 2.5% is actually 0.025. That would mess you up if you left it as 2.5. Do not do that. 0.025, this number here represents 2.5%. So that's 2.5% x plus, same thing here, 3.75 becomes 0.0375 y equals, so what this is saying is that the interest earned from the first account plus the interest earned from the second account's investment must equal the total interest earned, which we've been told is $162.50. So here's your 2 equations. Good glory, that looks annoying. But I don't think it'll actually be too bad. Let's just take this equation here, turn it into a new equation. You want to multiply this one by 1, 2, 3. You want to move that decimal place 1, 2, 3 times. So that means you're multiplying it by a number with 3 zeros, 1,000. So I'm going to multiply this literally by 1,000 here. And this becomes 25x plus 1, 2, 3. Ooh, no, I want to multiply it by 10,000. 250x plus 1, 2, 3, 4. Yep. 375y. Now I got to multiply this one by 10,000. So I'm moving this decimal over 1, 2, 3, 4. So 2 more zeros than what it currently has. 1, 6, 2, 5, 0. And then add 2 more zeros. 0, 0. So this has now become 1,625,000. 250x plus 375y equals 1,625,000. So all I did was I multiplied by 10,000 to get this decimal all the way over here so that it's not a decimal anymore. Now up here, I want to have something that I can cancel out. So again, I've been going back and forth with which one I do, whether it's the x or the y. Let's just go with the y this time. It doesn't really matter. I'm either going to multiply this by 250 to get my x's the same. When you do that, you're going to have 250y up here, and you'll subtract and be left with a negative number, right? 250 minus 375 is going to give you a negative. That means that this number will probably be negative, and it'll all turn out fine. I'm going to multiply this by, 375 this time, just because I want to. 375 here, here, and here. All right, so this obviously becomes 375x plus 375y, and it's going to be equal to 5,000 times 375, which is 1,875,000. Time to do elimination. 375 minus 250. 125x. 375y minus 375y will cancel out and give me a 0 pair. 1,875,000 minus 1,625,000 is going to be 250,000, I think. Unless my sick and infirmed brain is gone. So now that I have this, after eliminating, I have no y term, I'm just left with 125x minus, sorry, 125x equals 250,000. I need to divide each side by 125. So 250,000 divided by 125 is 2,000. So x equals 2,000. What did x represent? X represented the money we put into the first account. So if x is that, we can do our simple math. This is one of those ones where you wouldn't even need to rewrite the equation. You know that x plus y needs to be 5,000. So if x is 2,000, y obviously must be 3,000. Now in the last two examples, I haven't been checking, but I want you guys to know that you should be checking if it doesn't take you too much time, because time is important on these things. If it doesn't take you too much time, you should be checking your answers, you know. So let's come right back up here, and I obviously don't want to use this equation to check because that's the one that I just used to solve this one. Let's use this equation, this 0.025x, which is 2,000, plus 0.0375y, which is 3,000, equals 162.5. Let's see if that actually happens. So I'm going to do 2,000 times 0.025. That gives me 50. And then 3,000 times 0.0375 gives me 112.5. Sure enough, we get 162.5 equals 162.5. So we've solved this correctly, and this is your answer.